So we're back here at the Big Fish Little Fish podcast. Tail and I, just like we promised last time, are right back on the content machine. We came back to do another podcast today. We're here at episode 19. We only got a few topics to really talk about, so this shouldn't be too long of a podcast. And the first topic we're going to talk about is getting off your phone, getting away from that addiction to apps and social media. You know, so many people today are on their phones. If you look at your screen time, I don't know what the average is, and maybe we should look it up with Eugene, but I would say the average screen time for Americans is probably like, well, how about this? Average screen time for millennials is probably like 6 hours a day.
Oh, way more.
Oh, way more?
Way more.
Okay. Eugene, don't tell us yet. Over under what?
24 hours in a day, we're awake. I'm going to go aggressive and say average millennial screen time in a day is 11 hours.
11 hours?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good guess. I would say, okay, how about this? How about we do this?
Well, wasn't that your guess was 6?
6. But let's do this. Over under 9.
I'll go over.
Yeah. You go over. I'll go under. Under 9. All right. What is the
average millennial screen time per day?
I think there's a what age range? Because
millennials.
All right.
So millennials is like what, 25 to 35 or something like that. I don't know what millennials is.
Yeah, I think that's 35, 36. That's when you're starting to tail out of the millennial generation.
Yeah.
And if you're below 25 at this point,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
6 hours and 42 minutes.
Wow, your first guess was spot on.
Yeah.
Good job.
You had me second guessing.
Yeah, I made you move the needle.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you know what? I was like, maybe mine is pretty high up there, but I was like, there's got to be some people that are like more than me. I don't know. I feel like mine's was probably like 3 to 4 hours, which is a lot. And I was like, I venture people do 6. And then I was like, but then you were like 11. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Well, mine's really skewed because I look at mine and I actually fall asleep to YouTube on my phone most nights. So when that happens, I think it racks up the hours. So maybe mine's just skewed because it's adding in like sleep time for me.
Yeah. I also was thinking Gen Z's got to be like way higher. What's Gen Z?
9 hours.
9 hours. 3 more hours. That's crazy.
That's 50% more.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're living on their phones. And you can see it. When you look around, when you walk around in society today, most people are looking at their phone. Pretty much no matter what they're doing. You see it everywhere. You're driving, people are looking at their phones. You're on the metro, people are looking at their phones. People are walking down the street, they're looking at their phones. They're at dinners, at restaurants, they're looking at their phones. You go anywhere and people are glued to their phones. We've lost like the interactions between groups directly because it's all like people are voluntarily and preferring to go through their phones. If you actually look at it, people get uncomfortable when they have to interact with someone not on their phone. Even a phone call is uncomfortable for people now. You know what I mean? Where it's like we've gone a level away from in person to now phone calls are too much. So it's like if you're not texting or messaging, people don't know how to interact with each other anymore. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. No, it is kind of weird. I think something that I've taken away, this past week we talked about taking social media completely off of our phones. And for me, it's only been a few days that I've been doing it, but I have noticed like how often I look at my phone to look up a reel or to look up what people are doing, just kind of be informed on literally the dumbest things. One of the hardest ones for me to stay off of is Twitter, just because I actually enjoy reading the news on Twitter and trending topics and honestly a lot of stupid things that I didn't even care about before I was really connected to Twitter. I remember when I was like, I didn't get a smartphone until I was like 21. Because before that, I just had like a regular, I think I had a touch screen, but I didn't really use like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It was really like stuck on text messages and phone calls. And like, I think I could browse the web, but that was really it. But I wasn't browsing the web to use social media. I never had the apps until I got a real Android. I think I had like some crappy touchscreen that wasn't that good. And then once I got an Android, I was like, oh, now I really understand what people are talking about. I went from not really being on my phone to like I had a girlfriend at the time, and before I got the smartphone, she was like, we would hang out and we would actually be a lot more like in the moment. And then as soon as I got my smartphone, she was like, man, you are always on your phone. And I used to look at my friends who had smartphones and I'd be like, man, I don't want a smartphone because all y'all do is like we get together and you guys are just on Instagram, on WorldStar, on like all these different websites, but on your phone, like attached to the hip. And I thought that was so weird. I was like, man, what is wrong with all these people? And I knew it was the majority, but I kind of liked not having that. And then my first step into it was getting the Android, and then like downloading Twitter was one of the first things I started getting addicted to, just being on Twitter, following people on Twitter. And then there was even a bigger level about, I think it's been a little over a year now, when I got an iPhone. And then I really got addicted because low key, like an iPhone is in my opinion way more addicting than an Android. Everything works better on the Android. I'm a lot more locked into the apps using the iPhone. I don't know. It was it's definitely, I would say, in my opinion, a much more addicting product than even like an Android.
Yeah, I don't know why. I agree. It's weird. iPhones are weird because one, if you don't have one, society ostracizes you. They're like, you are different. You are not one of us. And people are like literally shamed into getting it. But then once you get it, there's something addicting about them. They have you use the phone more than any other phone. I don't know if it's the user interface or something about it, but if you have an iPhone, I guarantee you spend more screen time on your phone than someone who doesn't have an iPhone. And I don't know why.
Yeah, you're also more, in a weird way, I feel like prior to the iPhone, because like I said, I only started using an iPhone last year. I noticed that I do get a little more anxious without my phone than I did with other phones. Like other phones, if I didn't have them for a while, like I'd be like, oh, I'd like to check my message. Now, if I don't have my iPhone, I'm like, what the hell happened on Instagram? What happened on Twitter? What happened? I'm checking my emails. I'm just looking through everything the second I get my iPhone. I don't remember being like that with my Samsung. And also, like, it's so funny because before I had an iPhone, when people used to be like, oh, you don't have an iPhone? I was like, dude, we do the same things. We text. We use the same apps. We, like, you don't have FaceTime, but I have WhatsApp. You can use Snapchat video. And now I'm like, I was just texting somebody the other day who does not have iPhone for the first time. Or I was texting them for the first time, and I immediately realized, oh, you don't have an iPhone? I don't even know why that bothered me. But it bothered me. I was like, green bubble? That's stupid. I was like, green bubble? But, like, who cares? Like, in all reality, who cares? Like, it's not a big deal. And I remember before having an iPhone, I was like, who cares? But I cared. And it's the dumbest thing ever because it doesn't mean anything. I think it's hilarious that Apple made it so you notice if someone doesn't have the same technology as you.
100%. They've conditioned society into one feeling like you need their product, and two, ostracizing people who don't have it. And you almost like I said, it's one of us. I have an iPhone, and I get it, but it's very interesting. And I also think the social media is the thing. It's those two things together. It's not just the iPhone. I do think social media is a huge component of that because we both did the same thing where we got off of social media at the same time. And since then, I've already kind of seen that I'm like almost detoxing from my phone. Where I used to open my phone and just like go onto the social media habitually. So when I deleted the apps, I actually caught myself a few times opening my phone to look for the apps. And then in the middle of it, I was like, what am I looking for? I deleted these apps. But it was subconsciously, my body was like going through the motions of opening the phone, opening the social media, look at it. And it's like, man, you got to break those chains. You really do, because it's when you start looking for content subconsciously and you're being drawn to it, That's a scary place to be. That's not a good thing where like these phones are starting to condition our minds to have this dependency on them. That's why I say I would challenge every single person out there to delete their social media apps, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, all of them for 2 days. All you have to do is 2 days delete the apps off your phone. Physically delete it, not off your home screen, off the phone. And for 2 days, see how many times you check your phone to open those apps subconsciously. It'll probably scare you a bit. And after the 2 days, if you're good, download them again. But just kind of see how you feel after not having the apps on your phone for a cold turkey 2 days. If you got to post, do it through your laptop. It's clanky, but you can do it. So if you're saying, oh, I need it to post content, do it off your laptop or your desktop and don't have it on your phone. Take social media off your phone and see what happens to you after just 2 days. I think you'd be surprised.
That's such a good challenge. It's such a good challenge, but no one's going to do it. That's the sad part.
You don't think they will?
Nah. I mean, maybe.
You can do it. Delete it.
Maybe. But I think, I don't know, it makes me kind of sad how addicted society has become to all of these social media apps. And like, I'm an adult and I'm addicted to them. I couldn't imagine being like 13, 14, 15 years old living in this world, you know, being addicted to all of these different apps.
Yeah, it's scary to see because you see it more and more that no matter who it is, they're on their phones a lot. You can be pretty much any age group, any age range, and you see from young kids who have it the worst to adults, they all have it. I think the scariest part of it is what's going to happen to this generation of kids who are being raised on their phones?
Yeah.
This is almost like a uncharted territory as to how this is really going to impact the development of a generation. Like, I feel like millennials kind of got it at some point from their youth to their teens and they started to get introduced to it, but they weren't raised on their phone. With this generation that's being raised on their phone, how is that going to impact them? What's happening to those kids, that generation of people who are going to become adults, and for the first time ever, you're going to see what the actual reactions are to those things. For everything, there's a cause and a reaction. What's the reaction to a generation being raised on both their devices, their iPads, their phones, TVs, tablets, and at the same time with social media on those iPads, phones, TVs, tablets? Like, what does that look like? How does your brain work? You can already see some shortening of attention span. It's something that I think we all should be thinking about, because if it's shaping the minds of the youth, that's something we're all responsible for as adults. We have a responsibility to make sure that we're not giving these kids a product that is negatively impacting their development. I know we're all like, oh, it's easier to raise your kids on these devices, but as most of us are the last of the generation to know that there are benefits to not being on your phone, that's not fair to a kid to subjugate them to saying, hey, you're going to be on your phone all the time, and then, hey, you have difficulty paying attention. What's wrong with you? That's not fair to the kid. The kid did nothing wrong. They were raised on 3 and 5 second clips and reels. Of course their attention's going to be impacted. Of course it's going to be harder for them to focus. Is there a step that adults can take to help with development and limit their access to it? I think that's a responsibility we all have to make sure the kids are okay, because it's not their fault they're looking at it or want it or cry for it. I think that's the responsibility of an adult to make sure that they're controlling the volume of content they have exposure to. And it just seems like more and more the default is let your kid have the tablet. They behave better at a dinner table. Or let your kid have a tablet. You know, they have this game they have fun on. No, they have to be real people. They have to remember how to interact with people in real life. You can't live in your device. I know they're pushing this whole virtual reality left and right, but I don't believe in that. I don't believe virtual reality is the future of humanity. I think virtual reality is trying to be an escape, but you can never escape from the real world, or we shouldn't. We should not try to escape from the real world. You have to live here.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point. I know growing up, a big escape for our generation was video games, which is in itself a virtual world to some degree. And a lot of people growing up in our generation, you know, they had rough days at school, rough days, you know, maybe having a job in their teens. And, you know, they get off work or they get out of school and they're like, you know what? I'm just gonna play video games and zone out. But I think a lot of people, unfortunately, that is their escape for the rest of their lives. And sometimes they don't know how to. They don't grow up learning how to strike a balance between, limit myself to an hour to 2 hours of gaming, and then go out and hang out with my friends, maybe exercise or play a sport. Find other hobbies. Because I will say, like, a lot of people who just grow up and they just game all the time. And some games, there obviously are online communities. But, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that's going to replace real life human-to-human interaction, like real life human-to-human interaction, And I guess what concerns me is, it's almost like kids are on games all the time now with these phones. Yeah, literally it's not a game, but it takes your attention span like a game. They're glued on their phones like almost all day. They even have them at school. I was watching how now schools are considering banning phones. And I understand why some parents are like, oh no, I want to be able to communicate with my kid just in case, there's an emergency. I understand that. But I grew up in a time where you didn't have your phone in school. And we were fine. And you know what we did during school? We just learned. Obviously, like, your kid is going to go through adversity sometimes. You may not be able to communicate with them throughout the day. But that was part of growing up. And I guess it just concerns me that, like, kids feel like they need to be able to communicate with anyone at any time. And I think even human beings in general are still getting used to that. There's a time where there weren't even regular cell phones, right? And everyone's accessible all the time. And I think we really need to evaluate whether this new age of children being not just children, but children and teenagers are being exposed to so much, attention heavy devices. Because it's, like I said, it's not just cell phones, it's iPads, it's televisions. I mean, everything is a smart product, right? They have like smart refrigerators now. Your refrigerators are becoming computers. Your car is becoming a computer. Everything is a computer. Everything is starting to have access to the internet and access to apps. And it seems like you can be addicted. I wouldn't be surprised if they start making toilets with computer screens. So
there's definitely smart toilets out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a smart toilet out there, but it's terrible. It's terrible. I think it's a bad thing. I think it needs to be looked at how to detox everyone to some degree, but especially younger people. Younger people need to be protected because, like we said, we're in our 30s and we're addicted to our phones. Children are cooked.
Yeah.
It's
so hard to break. It feels wrong to get off social media and your phones. They've created it where if you even think about saying, hey, maybe I'll delete this app, your brain comes up with 100 reasons why you shouldn't delete it. It's almost like it really is like it's taken a level of kind of like control of your mind to say like, hey, you need this device and you need these apps, but you don't. They literally didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. Life went on. We don't need social media, and we don't need it at the level of volume that we're giving it to everyone. There's freedom to access it, but there's also like I said, a responsibility, at least with the youth, to give them a shot of knowing a life without social media. And then if you choose to do it as an adult, that's your choice. But just like everything else, we're in charge of making sure we're raising our children the right way and that next generation the right way. And there isn't a person alive who doesn't think social media is bad for you at some level. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows social media is bad for you to a certain extent. So why are we allowing our kids to have unlimited access to it? That's a responsibility of adults to be like, hey, I got to make sure that I'm helping with my children or the youth's development. That's not their responsibility to not be on social media. It's our responsibility to make sure that they're in an environment that's conducive to learning.
Yeah, no, totally. Dude, when we were kids, like MySpace and Facebook, when it first was really coming out, it was just on our laptops, and we were kind of like, we didn't take it serious.
Yeah.
We're like, this is the internet. This is a dumb thing. We're gonna write stupid statuses. We're gonna comment stupid things on each other's posts, and then we're gonna go play. We're gonna go play basketball, or we're gonna go on a walk with our friends to like the local 7-Eleven. And we left the social media at home.
Yeah.
You know, we might like mess around with it in the morning, and then we would just be out all day. We'd be out all day playing sports. You know, maybe we'd have like different people that we talked about, and we're like, oh, we're gonna write to this person when we get back to our computer, or we're gonna troll this person, or we're gonna talk to this girl. But it was at home, and you didn't actually like, focus so much attention on things. But now it's like, kids instantly have to know what each other are doing. Kids instantly have to be uploading. That's the other thing. They're uploading, not just kids, but everyone is just uploading what they're doing all the time to their stories. Just, hey, this is what I did today. Everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know. Like, I don't know. It's the more you think about it, the more you're like, why are we doing that?
Why are we doing it? I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. And I say that as somebody who does it.
I don't think anyone loves social media. At least I don't. It's like a necessary evil that we all have introduced to our lives. And it's like you post it, and then we all know so much of it's fake. We know that half of it, if not more, is fake. And all it does is just give other people's perception a tainted view of how reality is. Not everyone's always on a vacation. Not everyone's always in Mykonos every week. They're posting stuff from months ago just to get likes and views, but they're not even there right now.
Yeah.
And then when they were there, they were taking the photos, so they weren't even there for it.
Yeah.
People can't live in the present anymore because they're so concerned about how it's going to reflect on the social media that they share with other people that you go around and everyone's on their phone. You can't look at a fireworks anymore without everyone trying to take photos of the fireworks, which look like trash when they're on your videos. You can't go to a beautiful museum or look at art without people trying to do it. The art's in front of you. It's right there. You don't need to be on your phone. You have the opportunity to be in the moment. And they're like, oh, let me take this photo of it. You're not going to look back at that photo. I have never gone back to my photos and been like, oh, let me just scroll back and find it. You take it and it's just in this database. But you miss the moment. When you see like events happening, all you see is people out with their phones. We've lost living in the present, which was the best part of living. It's crazy. I don't understand how they've tricked us all into believing that it's better to live through our phones than it is to live in real life. I guarantee you every time I don't have my phone and I do something, I enjoy it more. Living in real life is better than living in your phone. But we all choose and feel pulled to live in our phones. It's very sad.
You know what's funny, though, about what you're saying? When we're in the moment and something happens and we don't get a photo or picture or video, we're like, I wish I had my phone for that.
I know. It's so true. How many times have we finished something and been like, dang, we didn't get any photos?
Yeah.
But we lived in the moment.
We lived in the moment. But sometimes we're like, if we only got that picture or video.
The moment, we could remember the moment.
Yeah.
Because you forget. I don't know. It's a tough toss-up.
And then we always look back and like, why don't we take more pictures and photos of these days? That's one of the biggest regrets I do get. I do always look back and be like, I should take more pictures with my friends and family growing up than I did. But then again, those days we didn't have these iPhones.
We didn't.
So it's not like taking a good picture was successful. We had crappy phones with crappy cameras back in those days.
No one saved any of those.
It was pixelated photos.
Yeah, and it didn't auto back up to Google Drive or anything.
Yeah.
So it was like it was on your device.
Yeah.
But pros and cons.
Yeah. Pros and cons.
Anything else on social media you had?
Nothing. It's a good segue to talk about how it's also an opening for people to, unfortunately get into, scam you. A lot of scams through social media. There's a lot of, cyber threats through social media, I don't know. There's been a lot of like bad, I would say, terrible things that came out of social media outside of people not being present, right? Like now you get like 100 scammers in a day, or not? No, that's a super exaggeration. But you'll get people hitting you up like, "Hey, you want to learn how to make $1 million? Give me like $2,000 and I'll show you." I help people. You give me $2,000. I do something with the money, and then you get 8,000 back, and then you convince people to give me 2,000, and then they'll get 8,000 back. There's like a bunch of giant Ponzi schemes on social media. There's like interesting little, like growing up, I had Cutco. There was like the big Ponzi scheme for us when we were kids. I don't even know how much of a Ponzi scheme that is. More like an organization that like really targets younger people to go out and sell knives. And I just remember having that job was really rough for me growing up. And now like there's just like a lot of different schemes like that for social media nowadays.
Yeah, it's true. I was kind of looking at it from a broader perspective too, and I was just saying like, yeah, that's kind of on a smaller scale, but like think about how much of our life relies on technology now. There isn't a thing you do that doesn't rely on technology to some level. You sleep in a house that's air conditioned or heated. You use the electricity for the lighting in it. You're using Wi-Fi to watch your videos or go on the internet. You're using your phone to call people. You're using a microwave to heat up your food. You know, every aspect of your life. You take a car to and from work. You know, every aspect of your life now is dependent on technology. I think that there's a level of technology went from being a tool to now it is the enabler of your life. If you take away technology from society right now, society would crumble. It isn't capable of operating without the systems and IT that we've developed to live. People can't live without the technology we have anymore. I think that we've lost a level of like the resilience and reliance on our knowledge to get by on a day-to-day, and in a lot of ways that's good. I mean, it's made life a lot easier. You don't have to do half the stuff that they had to do back in the day, which is awesome. But at the same time, it does create a bit of a vulnerability in the sense of saying like, hey, this makes your life really easy, but if this gets taken away, you don't know how to live. Whereas the alternative was, hey, your life's really hard, but you're going to make it through most situations because you know how to kind of take care of yourself. Now that isn't the case. You take out technology, society crumbles in a matter of days.
Like, give me an example. Like, what would be one of those things?
I mean, simply saying like if they took out access to, let's say this, they took out access to electricity, that alone, a lot of people wouldn't be able to cool their homes, and they wouldn't be able to cook food. They wouldn't be able to have, a lot of their basic activities taken care of. You take away that and gas. If gas was taken away, you wouldn't be able to commute anywhere because we all rely on cars for everything we do. But where we are expected to go for activities is further apart now. You're not in a little town or relying on your farm. You need this interconnected society to get your groceries and to get your, supplies and all of that. So it would shut down.
Yeah, there was that cyber attack a couple years ago that like all the, gas all on the East Coast was taken down for a while, and everyone was freaking out about filling up their car tanks just in case. That was a scary moment.
When that's what it was. It was Colonial Pipeline. When Colonial Pipeline went down in 2021 for like less than a day, or maybe it was a day or two, society was going crazy. You saw lines off the parking lot of the gas station for people trying to get gas. It literally turned into chaos like that. And that's a scary thing because that was a portion of the country, and it was for a very short period of time. A lot of people had enough gas in their tank already. If that had been for 2 weeks, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What happens in society if we lose access to just car vehicle gas for 2 weeks? I would argue society shuts down.
Yeah.
We are reliant on having a tank's worth of gas to live for a week.
Agreed.
That's a scary thing.
Yeah.
It's a very scary thing. And I think there's benefits, I wrote them down. I said, top 3 benefits of having technology. 1, it makes your life easier. There's so many amenities that you have because of technology. It's that much better. 2, interconnected. You really can communicate with anyone at any point in time in today's day and age, because between calls, texts, and emails, you can reach someone. And lastly, it gives you access to information. You pretty much can find out any piece of information you want with a quick Google search in a matter of literally seconds. But on the flip side, the top 3 things that are bad about technology, I said, are there's a lack of resilience in people. They now rely on technology and don't know how to operate without it. 2, there's a lack of being in the present, like we talked about, where so many people are so busy with their technology, they've lost their ability to be in the present. And 3, even though we're more interconnected, I think people have lost the ability to have connections with people because of technology. And that's a sad thing too, because we're the most connected ever and we're the least connected ever. So, I don't know. There's pros and cons to technology. It's not all good.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And I think it's also very scary, exactly what you were saying, where if one thing goes wrong, everything could go wrong, right? I mean, everything now is hooked up to a computer, like we've talked about, or to some degree is programmed. And one of the biggest things that I think people are starting to see is people are getting hacked. You know, their social medias are getting hacked. Their bank accounts are getting hacked. I had a family member recently that got a bank debit card that was hacked, and he was losing money from his account. And so he switched bank cards. And then the new bank card with new numbers and everything, before he even got it, the hacker was using that account already to pay for things.
Wow.
And he was like, I haven't even gotten the card. How are they hacking my account already? You know, he had to switch things up just to get out of the situation. But you hear about that where, you know, and the scary part is when that happens to you, there's no way to know for certain why or how it's happening to you. You don't know if someone has like some type of password, you know, almost like a password. I know there's like one of these hacking tools that like it's like a password generator that can figure out your password after a certain amount of time, or if maybe like a company that had some of your personal information that was leaked or was hacked themselves, and maybe somebody got it on like some type of like, you know, like dark market on the dark side of the web, or if, you know, maybe even somebody close to you may have stolen your personal information. It's hard to really define what that is, because a lot of times when you get hacked, I've had my credit card stolen before years back, and I remember, you know, canceling my card because somebody was using it, as well as, you know, reporting it, and they were like, we're gonna look into it. I never found out what happened with that. You know, it's not like you ever really find out. So it's like really hard to determine what was the cause of, you know, whatever personal breach you had, whether it was for financial or even maybe your personal identification. So yeah, man, it's a scary concept. The cyber world is really like the wild west, right? Wild west, and the majority of people don't really understand it.
Yeah, it's a foreign concept to them. Tell me if you've ever heard about these companies before. Marriott, Yahoo, Adobe, PlayStation, Target, Home Depot, T-Mobile, Facebook, First American Financial, Capital One, eBay, Sony, Microsoft, 23andMe.
Yeah.
You know what those all have in common?
What?
All been hacked. Every one of those major companies have had major breaches in their system. That's a scary thing. That means personal information is getting shared. Personal information is getting shared. That means that systems are down for periods of time, so you don't have access to their services. It means, you know, there are people who have infiltrated whatever those groups are and now have information that probably shouldn't be shared with the public. Like, there's a lot of things going on that you don't know exactly what's happening, and these companies are getting hacked, and you're just like, well, am I okay? Do you have my information? What happened? And you might see the headline. It maybe makes the news cycle, but after that, no one really talks about it. But there are huge impacts to a company being hacked, and it's happening every day to every part of our society. It even happens to the government. Did you know that these government agencies have been hacked? The Office of Personnel Management. There was the Democratic National Convention, the Pentagon, Colonial Pipeline, NASA. A lot of government organizations and agencies have been hacked. Those are foreign actors trying to take our information. That's not your, run-of-the-mill, everyday hacker in a basement. These are foreign adversaries who are figuring out how to get into our system. And we all rely on our government system operating so that we live. Like, if the government was doing one thing, they should be making sure that we're all safe. That's the main role of the government. Well, one of the ways to keep us safe in today's day and age is to make sure we have the best cyber program out there, and we're constantly battling against these foreign adversaries, which are putting more and more money and more resources into getting our information. Why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think a foreign government would want U.S. personnel information and government system information? You think it's for good things or bad things? I think we all know it's for bad, and I think that's what's going to be found out later on down the line. I think we're going to find out down the line that we've had a lot of sensitive information released to foreign countries, and we should be making sure that we're securing that as much as we can moving forward. The privacy of our citizens and our systems for national security is a huge element that we need to be making sure is both funded as well as operating the best way, especially in these wonky times we got going on right now. I really think that we're all going to look back and say, wow, we should have paid a little bit more attention to that when that was happening.
Do you think there's a way to actually do that? Do you think there's actually a way to stop all of these cyber threats? Or is it one of those things where we don't have the capacity? Is everyone just good at hacking each other and there aren't great defenses? Or do you think there's a way to make an almost impregnable cyber defense?
From my understanding, cyber offensive is a lot easier than cyber defensive. It's a lot easier to get into something than to protect it. And really, the ironic part is, from everything I've ever seen and studied, is the most protected methods of keeping information secure is the least tech forward. A lot of times when you go into our most sensitive information, they're not interconnected systems that are all operating around. You go into dark rooms because they're the most secure places with the least technology access to them. You're trying to keep the world out. So as we get more and more technology and it's more and more interconnected, it's less and less secure, actually. We're losing security and privacy of information the more technology advances.
Can you explain what a darkroom is to someone who's not familiar?
So we live outside Washington, D.C., so I'm sure you've had the conversation, but there's plenty of people who say, oh, I, work for a government agency, and when I go to my work, I don't have access to my cell phone. They actually don't bring in technology that is outside of that organization into the physical space they work in, and those networks that they're working off of are closed networks. They're not the same thing as if you're on the www.blank. They're using closed networks that don't have access to the outside world so that it's less easy for those outside actors to actually get in. So basically, the less technology you have, the more privacy you have.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe the answer is less technology to combat more technology.
Well, I guess it just depends on what you prioritize. Do you like the ease of use and the amenities that come from technology? Or are you more concerned with your privacy of information and kind of making sure that your most important financial or sensitive components aren't on the internet? I mean, it's a toss-up, but it's the same thing we said about social media. You almost feel like you have to be on them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's all I got on.
That's all I got. Let's keep it moving.
In the cyber world, social and cyber and all of the negative impacts. Let's talk about maybe having a fantasy draft.
Fantasy draft.
No.
Let's get it. It's been a while since we've done a fantasy draft.
It's been a while. How about we do this? We're gonna do top 10. Oh no.
Give it a great intro. I need the best fantasy draft intro we've had. Okay,
we're gonna do fantasy draft for American inventions. Top 5 American invention fantasy draft. So we'll do serpent. What are we gonna do?
Snake.
Serpent style? Snake style?
Serpent. You went dark on it.
We'll do snake style. You get a pick, then I get a pick, then I get another pick.
I
then
think
you
I
get a
went
pick.
first last time. Why don't you go first this time?
No, I think.
Did
I
you
went
go first last time?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Rock,
you
paper,
go
scissors.
First. Rock, paper, scissors.
On camera. Ready?
All right. 1-on-1.
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 Right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right. You can go
I'll go
first. Okay. Get a few things picked out. Let's see what your number one pick
All right.
is. That'll be interesting.
Number 1 pick in the top 5 American invention fantasy draft, I'm going with the light bulb. I think that kind of changed the world. When you had access to light day and night, not on a candle, it's a pretty big game changer, and it allowed society to keep operating. So I'm giving that my number 1 pick.
That's good. That's good. And it's, you know what's funny? You know what my number 1 pick is? And it's so funny because we were already on the topic. Number 1 pick for me, personal computer. And this was developed over time. I believe IBM had the first one. American company. Personal computers. Everyone has a computer at this point, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. But personal computers, I think, changed the game. It changed the way people worked, changed the way people were able to do research, changed the way people were able to do entertainment. I think personal computers is my number 1 pick.
All right, and you also have the second pick, sir.
I have the second pick. And the second pick for me is the airplane. The airplane, the Wright brothers. This was a game changer. It was a game changer for transportation, not just for people, but for products. It was a game changer for war, unfortunately, depending on what side you're on. It's a game changer for the ability for people to not just have everyday transportation, but also to see the world. Without airplanes, I mean, I don't think people are as well traveled as they are today. People used to have to rely on ships. The ocean is a scary place, you know? I think the preferred method for people generally today is airplanes over ships. And it's just made people getting from point A to point B a million times quicker.
I'm going to stick on that theme and say my second pick is the telephone. I think when we're talking about inventions, if you have things that are getting people to be able to be connected faster, that's a huge change in how society is able to operate. And once we had telephones, you didn't have to send mail across the country that, took weeks at a time. Now you could talk to someone instantaneously almost. Having telephones completely changed communication as a whole. So that's my second pick.
That's a great pick. You get one more.
The next one I'm going to do is third pick in the draft is the digital camera. I thought when you had a world before the camera, you really didn't have a way of accurately capturing what was happening in a moment. You'd have to write about it, and when you write about it, it can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. You know how they said a picture's worth 1,000 words? Well, there you go. A picture is worth 1,000 words because you didn't have to write it anymore, and it truly captured the moment you were looking at. So I almost have a tough time thinking about what life was like before cameras because everything you did had to either be read or spoken to you. You couldn't reference something that happened directly yourself. So that's my third pick.
Okay. My third pick is the microwave oven. I think that was a game changer.
Blah.
Listen, I don't care what anybody says. The second people were able to heat things up instantly, it was a time saver for the working man. It made it easier for people who just didn't have the great cooking skills to be able to eat a good meal. And you know what? No one knows for sure if microwaves give you cancer, right? It's all speculation. It's grand conspiracy. From what's known right now, microwaves are a great option to be able to eat food. Helps people who just are really short on time. It saved a lot of time, and they're a great tool, and they've changed the way Americans can enjoy a good lunch or dinner or even breakfast.
I would just like to quickly, in between your picks, go on the record and say I have been against microwaves for a long time. It's not something we should be using. If you can heat it up in a pan, you should heat it up in a pan or an oven. It's a much better way to cook your food. Microwaves are a shortcut, and yeah, they make it easier, but the food doesn't taste as good, and there's no way you can tell me it's as healthy. And I felt this way for years, and I'm going to feel this way for years. I'm not a scientist. You don't have to trust me like I'm telling you there's some scientific fact, but if you ask me my opinion, purely off of my opinion, microwaves are terrible for you. Next pick, sir.
Good. Yeah. Thank you for your opinion. The rest of normal Americans
as many of the comments in our videos have said, who cares about your opinion? No one. But I'm going to say it. Microwaves are bad. Whether you care or not.
Microwaves aren't that bad.
Challenge number 2 of the episode. Microwave challenge. Why don't you not use your microwave for a week? Go a full week without using a microwave. Only cook your food in a pan or an oven and tell me it's not that much better. It takes a little bit more time. It tastes better and it's healthier.
I can legitimately say it doesn't taste better. I can legitimately say I've gone a week without using the microwave, and I legitimately don't enjoy the pan all that much better.
Lies.
Unless it's like a steak.
What have you been eating?
Well, okay, this week, yeah.
Did you want to microwave the eggs and ground beef?
I could have. But we're not going to get into that. What do we pick 4?
Pick 4 for you.
Okay. Next pick, I'm doing the television. The television was a great invention. It really changed the way people were entertained, as well as, in a weird way, bring people together. Television created television shows. You know, it was a leeway to television shows, and people are able to connect and build relationships through watching a show together, watching a movie, or a camaraderie around bringing somebody who knows another person just because they talked about the same television shows that they enjoy watching. So television is my number 4 pick. I enjoy a good television show.
Okay. And for my I'm 4 and 5. I think we messed this up.
Did we mess this up?
Because if I was 1, how can I be the first 5? I don't know. I'll go 4. With my 4th pick, I'm going to go GPS. It actually was developed by the Department of Defense, but GPS really makes life a lot easier. Back in the day, you had to have maps or, find different ways for your routes. Now you pretty much can get anywhere and have the fastest route possible there. It really makes it that much easier to travel now. So if you have access to GPS, you can get anywhere you need and know the best way to get there. That's a game changer in life. And for my last pick, I'm actually going to say the 5th best invention in America, the submarine. I think it's crazy that we developed a boat that can go underwater and stay underwater for extended periods of time. If you really look at it, that drastically changed nautical warfare when you have to be worried about, is there a ship that I can't see underwater coming to attack me? So from a defensive perspective, I think that submarines really are a feat to be had.
I'm going phonograph. For my last pick, I'm going phonograph. Thomas Edison was able to do this or create this invention in 1877, and it was the first device capable of recording and producing sound. It laid the foundation for music. It laid the foundation for, when we leave each other voicemails as well as video messages, right? Because being able to record sounds is an important thing. I mean, think about all this great speeches and conversations that have been recorded since this invention has been had. Imagine if we were able to get recordings of discussions of George Washington, right? Or like Alexander the Great, right? Or Jesus, right? But we didn't have the phonograph. If people knew 1,000 years ago that Thomas Edison would have made the phonograph, they'd be like, damn, I wish I had that today. We take these things for granted. It's a wonderful invention. I mean, we're using something like that right now.
This pod wouldn't be possible without the phonograph. Thank you, Thomas Edison.
That's correct.
That's a sneaky good 5th pick. I think you may have actually stolen the last round. I went submarine.
Yeah.
Passed up on phonograph. You sold me.
Yeah.
I read it. I didn't like it as much. You sold it to me. I'm buying.
The submarine, I saw the submarine, and I was like, not super keen on blowing things up under the water. Like, good invention, not in my top 5.
It's a game changer, though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely a game changer. But so is this. I don't know how many submarines you're making without this.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
Well, there's our top 5 fantasy draft of American inventions.
I think we're wrapping up this pod.
Quick work. How are we doing, Yu?
We're on around 50 minutes.
All right.
Oh, good.
Shout out to Pope.